Okay, hello students. This video should help prepare you for the final exam interview. So whether you are level 1 or level 2, okay, the information here will be important for both levels. Okay, now I have this PPT here open. Let me make this big. So what I'll do first is just explain a little bit about how the interviews will be run, and then go over some of the types of questions that would be asked, and then also how to properly answer them, okay? And some general information about preparing. Okay, so first off, what to do and not do during interviews. Okay, the things that you want to do is listen carefully to my questions, okay? Particularly if it's keywords like the WH questions, who, what, when, where, why, how, and which, or certain vocabulary that was used in a particular section of the topics that we covered during the semester. Okay, make sure you answer in complete sentences. All right, so that's very important. You don't want to just answer with one word. You want to make a complete sentence. And then during the semester, when we did in-class activities, I tried to get students to make sentences, okay, whenever they answered. So we did practice this and kind of exercise this during the semester. And then during the interview, you want to make sure that you do that. And then even better, if you can, oops, let me go back. If you can, hold on a second, let me annotate that. Okay, try to provide more information or more details, okay? So you give an answer and then also give more information. Now, you might get a question and you're not sure what the question is or what it means, or maybe you just need a little more time to think, okay? So if that's the case, you could ask me to repeat the question. So you could ask, like, could you repeat that? Or one more time, please. You could even say, like, I'm sorry, I don't understand, or could you say it one more time? And this will give you time to think a little bit more by having me repeat the questions, okay? And then what if you don't understand the meaning of the word that I ask? So I may ask you a certain word in the question, and then you may not understand what that word means. In that case, if you don't understand the word, ask, what does mo 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 mean? Okay. Yeah, so if you don't remember the word, or you're not familiar with the word, then ask, what such and such word mean? Okay. And then during the interview, you want to speak loud and clear with good pronunciation, okay, as best you can. And important note, have at least 2 questions prepared to ask me from each unit that we covered, okay? So we covered, well, usually we cover between 4 to 5 units. And then in those units, there are certain types of questions that I asked or that was in your assignments, okay? And so if you can remember and prepare at least 2 questions per unit that we did in class, then if I ask you to ask me questions during the class, you should be able to prepare a question, okay? Okay, and then things not to do. Don't give one-word answers like yes or no only, okay? So if you answer with one word, you're not even gonna get a point for that, because you haven't really shown me that you have a good comprehension of what I'm asking you, okay? Do not ask questions about your grades or attendance during the interview. So this is something that happens a lot during the interviews. Students start asking me, oh, well, teacher, am I gonna pass the class, or did I miss any classes, or what kind of grade can I get? So these are good questions, but not during the interview. All right, so if you have these kind of questions, you need to send me a message or an email, later, okay, after the interview, and then I can answer you. Okay, but because of the time constraint, you have to stay within your time for the interview, which would be between probably 5 to 7 minutes. Okay, these kind of questions should be saved for later. Okay, and then during the interview, do not mumble, speak clearly. So that means that you need to, as I mentioned earlier, speak loud and clear. Okay, if you mumble like this, where I can't really hear you well, this is called mumbling. If you do that, then I can't hear you well enough. Okay, and then you're going to certainly lose points if you're mumbling. And then finally, try not to hesitate when you answer. Now, hesitation means to pause. Okay, here, maybe I can insert that in here. Okay, pause. Okay, so you don't want to pause if possible. And I do understand sometimes it's a little bit difficult, and it may happen sometimes in the interview where you have to pause, but your goal is to try not to pause. Once I ask you a question, your goal is to answer the question immediately, as soon as you can, and in a complete sentence. Okay, so that's a very important point. All right, so these are some of the things that you don't want to do in the interview. And then those are some of the things that you want to do at the top here. Okay. All right. So, and another thing I'll mention, this PPT file for your level 1 or level 2, will be uploaded to the CTL, and then you can download this PPT and use it to help you prepare for the interview after you've seen the video lesson. Okay. And so if you're level 1, you're going to have a certain PPT, and if you're level 2, you'll have this PPT here. Okay. All right, and then let me do this. Let me go to the next slide. Okay, now here is the rubric for the interviews. And the rubric is simply the grading criteria, how you'll earn the points for the final exam interview. Okay, now, as you can see here, you have 6 categories. You've got comprehension, grammar, pronunciation, fluency, listening, enunciation. Okay, so there's 6 categories, and each is worth a certain amount of points with a total of 30 points. Okay, so I'll just insert that in here. Total is 30 points. Okay, so your final exam interview is worth 30 points. Okay, and then here I'm going to explain and show you how you can get those points. Okay, all right, hold on a second. There we go. Okay, so you have here, first is comprehension, which is worth 7 points. Okay, I made this the highest points because, as it says here, ability to understand and comprehend the questions. So you have to be able to answer my questions in order to show that you understood the question I asked and that you know how to answer it properly. Okay, this will be comprehension. So it's probably one of the most important ones. Okay, now the rest of them you'll see are worth 5 points. Grammar, using proper sentence order and grammar points. Now we practiced using most the grammar points during the beginning of the semester. Okay, so you want to make sure that you use them properly in the interview. Okay, whether it's past tense, present tense, or future tense, for example. Okay, and then next is pronunciation. So I must be able to understand the words that you are saying. I have to understand what you are trying to say to me. So properly saying the words, okay, that is also, of course, very important. Now we have fluency. Fluency is speaking naturally and comfortably, or syntax. Now, I'm going to go more into detail about fluency here in a moment after I go over these main points here. Okay, next is listening. That's also worth 5 points. Focusing on keywords and or phrases. So I need to see that you are listening to the particular kind of questions I'm asking, so that one, I'll know that your comprehension is good, and then two, that you have good listening skills. Okay, because if you are listening properly for like the WH questions that I'm asking, and you know how to answer those kind of WH questions, or if I'm asking other questions and there's certain keywords that I'm included in the question, that you can respond to that and answer it well. Okay. And then finally, we have enunciation, which is worth 3 points. Okay, now I put less points here because it's not quite as important as, say, like comprehension and pronunciation and listen. Okay, but it says here, put stress on certain words when you talk. So that means that, like during the semester, I mentioned about intonation, where I told you that your voice, when you speak, may lower or go higher. It may go up and down. That's intonation. Okay, but enunciation is where you make a stronger or put more stress on a particular word. Okay, so example, if I say the sentence two different ways, the first way without enunciation, then I might say like this: I hate eating spicy food. Okay, so here I said all the words, but I did not enunciate any of them. Okay, now if I do it again, but with enunciation, I might say like this: I hate eating spicy food. Okay, so what I did is I put more strength on the word hate and spicy. Okay, so it's not intonation because I'm not raising or lowering the pitch of my voice, but all I'm doing is just putting more strength on a particular word. Okay, so when I say I hate eating spicy food, then I've put some enunciation on those words, hate and spicy. Okay, all right, so that is important, but I won't be putting as much emphasis point-wise with enunciation. Okay, so remember, comprehension is going to be the most important one. Okay, and let me let's see, let me clear off the board. Okay, and then let's go to the next slide. Okay, so I just mentioned previously that I wanted to kind of go over a little bit more about fluency. We say fluency and accuracy. So along with the comprehension, which is worth 7 points, you have fluency, which is worth 5 points. And for level 1, level 2 students, I don't expect you to have like perfect fluency, of course, right? But I am also checking to see what level of fluency you do have, okay? So take a look here. Number 1, it says fluency, an ability to express oneself intelligibly, meaning that you can answer or respond in a way that makes sense and fits with the question being asked, okay? Reasonably, accurately, and without too much hesitation. So I mentioned earlier that you don't want to hesitate when I ask you a question, okay? You don't want to pause. You want to listen to my question carefully, listen for the keywords, and then when you answer, make a full sentence, but try to do it without any kind of hesitation. Okay, because hesitation is like this. If I'm answering a question, well, let's say the question is this: how often do you ride a bike? And then when you answer, okay, if I hesitate a lot, it would be like this: I sometimes ride a bike. Okay, so there a lot of hesitation, a lot of pausing, versus if I don't hesitate, when the person asks me the question, how often do you ride a bike? And then I answer, I sometimes ride a bike. Then that sounds very good and natural, okay? And it shows that you understood the question. Now, so that's part of fluency. And then also be able to answer with an appropriate response, okay? So I would say, I sometimes ride a bike. I enjoy riding my bike at the park or on the walkway near my home. Okay, this shows that you have a good level of understanding and that you can answer the question appropriately. Okay, so that's going to be fluency. And then accuracy, which will also fall under with fluency and comprehension. You have accurate pronunciation, accurate grammar, and accurate vocabulary. Okay, so those three put together, pronunciation, grammar, and vocabulary, should give you accuracy. Okay, and then the fluency, you put all that together and just respond and answer naturally without hesitation, will tell me that you have some fluency. Okay, it'll let me know if your fluency is poor or so-so, or pretty good or excellent. Okay. Okay, now this slide here, as it says here, final notes. So the day of the interview. Okay, now we will prepare the interview dates in class. Okay, so you'll know what day and time you're going to be coming for the interview. Okay, and then once you do know that, you're gonna be able to prepare. And then the actual day, the particular day of the interview, these are some things that you need to think about. Okay, and be ready. Number one, do not be late for your interview. Arrive at least 2 minutes early. Okay, so example, if your interview is at let's just say 10:30 a.m. Okay, just as an example, right? If your interview starts at 10:30 a.m., okay, you should arrive by 10:28 a.m. Okay, hold on a second, and then let me just expand that out. Okay, like so. All right, so if we have a Zoom interview, which is online, then you'd want to enter the Zoom meeting and just wait in the waiting room, and then I would let you enter, okay, and join in, depending on the time. But you want to be there early, so that way you do not arrive late, okay? Because if you are late, let me just put this here. If you arrive late, I will deduct 5 points. Okay, which seems kind of harsh. It's a lot of points, but that's because it is a test. It is an interview test. And if you're late, I'll automatically take 5 points off your total score. Okay, so don't be late. And so that's why you want to arrive at least 2 minutes early. That way you can't be late. Okay, and also, if for some reason you have a problem, like you find out you have a problem with your schedule, with your other classes, or you get sick, or your internet connection is not working, or Zoom is not working, something, then you need to contact me and let me know. Okay, send me a message through Kakao. I would do that. Use Kakao, because that way I can see the message quickly. And even if I can't see the message at the time that you sent it, because maybe I'm in a meeting and I'm doing an interview with another student, I can see that you had sent a message. I can see the time that you sent it. So if you send me a message before the time of your interview and tell me, oh, my internet is not working, or there's a problem, then I can see that you sent it before the actual interview date. And then we can work it out. We can figure out another time or day for you to do your interview. Okay, and then you wouldn't necessarily lose any points then, because you kind of gave me notice so that we can make an adjustment, okay, or just change the schedule. Okay, so don't forget that. Arrive at least 2 minutes early. Okay, second, now it says here, 2, prepare all materials, meaning make sure your camera and microphone are working properly. So yeah, if we're doing a Zoom interview and your camera and microphone are not working, then you cannot do the interview. Okay, let's just say, for example, your microphone is working but your camera is not. No good, because if I cannot see you, I can't tell if it's you. I can't see if you're just reading from a a piece of paper or from your textbook, I don't really know what's going on. Okay, so that doesn't work. And then if your camera is working, but your microphone isn't working, that means I cannot hear you, which makes it impossible for you to do the interview. So you must make sure that both your camera and microphone are working when you come in for the interview. Okay, that's very, very important. And if you're sick, you've got a cold or a sore throat or a dry cough, then you better reschedule your interview. Okay. All right. And then number 3, we have do not wear a mask during the interview. And there's a reason for this, because if you wear your mask, your voice is not going to be clear. I'm going to have a hard time understanding some of the words that you're trying to say. I mean, you may already have some trouble pronouncing some words, but if you're wearing a mask, it makes it even worse and more difficult. So make sure that you do not wear a mask during the interview. So if that means that you have to go to a quiet place where there's no other people, a place that is safe and you can social distance properly, you need to make sure you do that. That way you don't have to wear a mask during the interview, okay? So I have to tell you to not wear a mask. Now, if for some reason you are in a place where you have to have a mask, well, my best suggestion is don't be in that place. You're gonna have to find another place where you can do it without a mask, okay? But if you absolutely can't find a place where they don't expect you to wear a mask, then the only other thing you can do is just pull your mask down off of your mouth so that you can still speak and I can hear you clearly, but you still have the mask on your head, on your face, but just down below your mouth, okay? That would still be acceptable. Okay, and then finally, 4, after the interview, you will be finished for the rest of the semester, meaning you do not have to attend any other Zoom meetings or classes, okay? So whatever the date is for your interview, once you do it and you finish your interview with me, you are finished for the semester, okay? And then if you have any kind of questions at all, any concerns, just send me a private message using Kakao or send me an email, okay? If you want an answer quickly, much more fast, then you better send it to my Kakao, okay? Because I do check my email, but not as often as my Kakao. Okay, but that's very important. Please don't, after you finish your interview, ask, oh, teacher, do I have to come to the next interview dates? The answer is no. If you did your interview and you finished it, you are finished for the semester and you do not need to come anymore, okay? So please remember that. Now, what I'll do here, let me clear this off first, is I'd like to kind of just show you what it looks like, this PPT. Oops. Okay, now in this case, this PPT is for the level 2 students. Okay, level 1 students will look the same, just it will say Communication English 1. Okay, but for level 2 students, you'll see some of the topics are the same for both level 1 and level 2 for the first part of the semester. Okay, and in each unit, you'll see where I break down the important points that were covered in the unit. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Okay, I think that was a little bit easier to see now. Okay, so I break it down into what were the important points. It's the same as the notes that you should have taken for each unit that we covered. At the beginning of each unit, when you watch the video lesson, I explained what was important. So if you have that written down, that's perfect. Okay, but this PPT, you can also use as you review and prepare for the interview. Okay, so in the first unit that we did in class, we talked about daily life, everyday life. And these were the important points: daily activities, frequency adverbs, and frequency of time or time expressions, WH questions, and using the present tense grammatically. Okay, so that was the main focus of Unit 1. And then I gave examples. Okay, daily activities. So these are things that you do either every day or most of the time, okay? Like eat breakfast, take a nap, take a shower, commute to school, some of you, versus something like maybe you go visit relatives or go travel. You might do that as an activity too, but not as often. Whereas these are the things that you do daily, okay, or almost daily. And then the frequency adverbs and time expressions. So we went over the types of questions that we could ask, like how often do you something, or do you ever, okay? So you want to be able to ask these kind of questions, and you want to be able to answer them as well. So you see, in the example, how often do you read novels? Answer, I sometimes read novels. Or I read novels twice a month. So in the first case, I use a frequency adverb. And the second example, I use a time expression, or using frequency of time, okay? And then when we use do you ever, it's the same idea, same kind of question, because we want to find out the frequency, but we also want to indicate if this is something you do or not do. So you have to say yes or no first, then give your sentence, okay? Okay, and then these were the 7 WH questions that we talked about, the functions of each WH question. So you want to make sure you understand each WH question well, so that if I'm asking you the question, you understand what the question is asking and how to answer it. And then 2, if you ask me a question, for example, I might ask you to make a question for me using why, and then you'd have to prepare a question, okay? So if you understand what the function of each WH question is, it'll be easier for you to ask questions. Then here, you'll see possible questions during interviews. Now, typically in the interview for Unit 1 Daily Life, I might ask these kind of questions, okay? So you will want to review these when you get the PPT at the CTL, at the Kyoso Hakusub system. When you download the PPT, you'll have these kind of questions available to you to look at. Most of the time I ask these kind of questions, okay? Because it's based on what we did in class, what was in the homework assignments, and what was on the quizzes, okay? All right, so for each unit, okay, you'll see here, Unit 6 was telling stories for level 2 students, where we focus on the past tense, okay? It shows same thing. It gives you the main points, okay, examples, and then types of questions that I might ask, okay? So for each unit or section that we covered in the PPT, I will lay it out the same way, okay? You'll get the main points, examples, and then the kind of questions that I would ask during the interview, okay? So this PPT will help you in that respect. So whatever units, topics we covered during the semester, it will be in this PPT so that you know, and then it'll help you kind of remember the topics that we covered during the semester, okay? All right, now, what I'd like to do now is go to the whiteboard and go over examples of questions that I might ask, but also go over like how to answer, okay? Appropriate way to answer, okay? So let's go to the whiteboard. Okay, so remember, it's important that you listen carefully to the questions I ask, as well as be able to answer, as well as be able to make questions for me, okay? So let's just pretend I'm A. So I am the interviewer, okay? So let me just put that here like this. A equals interviewer, which is me, your professor, okay? And B equals the interviewee. Which is going to be you, the student, okay? So an interviewer asks questions, and an interviewee answers the questions, okay? So that's very important to understand. I will be the interviewer, you will be the interviewee. However, sometimes you're going to have to become the interviewer during the interview. Sometimes you're going to ask me the questions, okay? So you have to be prepared for that. All right, let's just make a short example. Okay, so I'm the interviewer, and I ask a simple question like this. How often do you go to a public bathhouse? Okay, this is my question, right? Now, when you answer, okay, first of all, you know it's a WH question using how, but it's how often do you? So that means I want to know the frequency, okay? Whether you use a frequency adverb or a time expression. But what if you don't understand what this is? A public bathhouse? What is that? Well, if I ask you this question, how often do you go to a public bathhouse, but you don't understand what a public bathhouse is, then you better ask me. You better ask something like, teacher, what is a public bathhouse? Okay, so this is how you could ask if you don't understand the word or phrase that I'm asking you. Okay, so you could ask a question like this: oh, what is a public bathhouse? Okay, and then and of course I would respond, it is a place to wash your body. And it's a public place because many people might go there. Men might go to a public bathhouse together, and then women go separately in another public bathhouse, in another location in the public bathhouse. And in Korean, you say 목욕탕. Or if it's the kind where both men and women can stay there together, that's a jjimjeolbang, right? So in America, we call it a sauna. Or you say sauna. In English, we say sauna. But anyways, the point is that in the interview, if I ask you a question like public bathhouse and you don't know what that is, you're gonna have to, you better tell me and say, give me a question. What is a public bathhouse? And then I can explain it to you, okay, which will help you. All right. Then once you know what that means, you can answer now. And then you say something like this: I rarely go to a public bathhouse. Okay, remember, you're going to use a frequency adverb, like in this case, rarely, and repeat the activity, because the activity up above was go to a public bathhouse. So when you answer, I rarely go to a public bathhouse. Okay, now that's a good answer. And you're going to get points because you answered the question properly and you made a complete sentence, okay? However, if you answer with one sentence, that's good, but if you can give more information, you're going to do even better. You're going to get more points towards, the fact that you have comprehension and fluency, okay? So if I said, I really go to a public bathhouse and then give more information, I don't like the crowded bath houses. Okay, something like that. So meaning like there's too many people and you don't like it, or maybe you think that the water is not clean, or you'd rather just wash at home in the privacy of your home. So by saying this, I don't like the crowded bathhouses, this gives me more information and it tells me more that you understand, the type of question I'm asking. Okay. So that makes it an even better response. Okay, let's try another example. Okay, so I might ask a simple question like this. Okay, what did you do last weekend? Okay, and then B. I ate rice. Okay, there's their answer. Okay. Now, it is the correct answer, and it is actually a sentence, but it's a very short, very simple answer. It doesn't really give me much information. Okay. So it is best that when you answer, you try to give more information, try to explain in more detail, and try to express yourself as best you can. Okay, so you might start with I ate rice, but give more. So example, you might say like, I spent the weekend with my family. We had chicken and Coke while watching TV. Okay, oops, something like that. Okay, so in this case, you're right. You're offering to explain more about your weekend. You're giving more sentences and more detail. So now I know that you spent time with your family, you had chicken, and also a chicken and Coke, and that you watched TV, all while eating and doing this with your family. So it gives me a lot of information. And by giving me good information, I might ask you follow-up questions. Okay, remember, follow-up questions are asking more questions, like WH questions, based on what the listener has said. In this case, the interviewee. So the interviewee said, I ate rice, I spent the weekend with my family, we had chicken and Coke while watching TV. So I might ask a follow-up question. Oh, so what TV, let's say TV show did you watch? Okay, so here, this would be an example of a follow-up question. Okay, and then B just says Friends, which is an American TV sitcom. You can find that on Netflix. But anyways, they just say Friends, and that's their answer. So again, this wouldn't be good. It's a one-word answer. It's again too short. It's not a good response. It's an answer. It's even correct, but it's so limited. Okay, so the better way to answer would be like this in a sentence. We watched the TV show Friends at 8 p.m. It was very funny. Okay, something like this. So look at the difference. You've got, first they just said one word answer, Friends. Okay, again, it's correct. Okay, it does answer my question, but it's so vague and without much information. Okay, but B then in the second answer says we watched the TV show Friends at 8 p.m. It was very funny. So I have more information. For example, they gave the time that when the show was on, and they also gave their opinion about it. They said it was very funny. So expressing your opinion, giving more detailed information. Like, for example, you might say, oh, we always watch Friends on Saturdays because it's always on TV on Saturday at 8 p.m. Okay. Or you might say, I enjoy watching funny TV shows like Friends. So I usually watch that at 8 p.m. with my family. So all this information is good. And it gives me more to work with by, if I want to ask more follow-up questions, I can do so. All right, now, and the main point is this. Okay, now, first of all, this one is not good. So you don't want to use this. Okay, so that example, that part of the example is not good. You want to answer like this one in the second part. Okay, if you answer my question, and then I can get enough information from you and then be able to ask a follow-up question. Okay, let me just put that here. Okay, follow-up question. Then this means that you're doing very good. okay? And the more questions I ask you about the same topic, in this case about the weekend, and I ask more questions and you can answer them, shows me that you have a good comprehension and understanding, okay? And then if you can make those kind of answers and sentences quickly and naturally, then that means your fluency is also very good. Okay, so you're gonna earn more points on that. All right, so that's very, very good in the interview. If you keep your answer very short and simple and don't give any more details, then you're gonna get some points because you answered the question, okay? But you're not gonna get nearly as many points as if you can make full sentences and then give more detailed information and express yourself comfortably by stating more and expressing your opinion, okay? All these things are good. I mean, in this case, they said that the Friend show was very funny. They might have even said about the chicken or the rice that they ate. They could say, oh, the chicken was very spicy, but I drank Coke, so it was okay. Okay, something like that. Or they could say, oh, I like to have rice with my chicken because I eat rice all the time. All this stuff is good information, and it gives me, the interviewer, more kind of follow-up questions that I can ask. And if I can ask a lot of follow-up questions, again, that means you're doing very well in the interview, okay? If you can't, that is okay though. I mean, if you really cannot give more information, you can't give more details, and you have a hard time expressing yourself, then keep your answer short, but in a complete sentence, okay? That would be my advice if you struggle or have difficulty to express more as you answer my questions, okay? And then when you need to make questions, I'm typically going to ask something like, I might say, please ask me a question about using past tense. Okay, so I might say, I want you to ask me a question using the past tense. So if you're asking a question using the past tense, you're gonna have to do something like this. Where did you go yesterday? So this is a question, but it's in the past tense, okay? So I'm gonna ask you to make these kind of questions. I might say, ask me a question from Unit 1 Daily Life, where you need to use something like a WH question or a frequency question, okay? Something about daily activities like that. So you need to make sure you know the topic well from the units that we covered in the class, and then you, like I said earlier, if you can remember at least 2 questions per chapter or unit, then when I ask you to ask a question, you should be okay. You shouldn't have too much trouble preparing a question for me, okay? Yeah, and so that's mainly what you want to do during the interview. And it really depends on how well you're doing during the interview, if the interview is longer or not as long, okay? So yeah, something to keep in mind. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, we will set the schedule for the day and time of your interview when we meet in class. And then in the meantime, you can start preparing for the interview by checking the homework assignments that we did that are posted at Seesaw, and the quiz number 1, and then also you'll have quiz number 2. You can always use those for review, and that will help you. And then finally, the PPT that I will upload to the CTL, that will provide you a general overview of what you want to cover and study before the actual interview. Okay. All right, so we'll stop here. And then if you have any further questions after you've seen this video, please don't hesitate to ask, okay? Because this is worth 30 points. It's the most important points that you're gonna get during this class for the semester, okay? Okay, thank you guys. That'll be it for this video.